So we're delivering this webinar on behalf of the High Street Task Force, and the whole title of this is about understanding place sentiment. I'm Polly Barnfield, I'm the founder and CEO of Maybe, and Sarah. Hello Sarah, who are you and what do you do?
Hello, I'm Sarah Bassett, I'm Head of Growth at Maybe.
And so what Maybe is all about is we collect the social media data from 3.9 million UK businesses every single day. That means that our servers are going like 10 per dozen. We collect about 80 million posts every single day. And it gives us quite an interesting perspective on the world. We know what social content is working well for businesses and what isn't. We know who's doing what, and we know where they're doing it. All of our social content is connected to place. We've been doing it for quite a long time now, and that led us to work with the High Street Task Force, where if you've logged into your High Street Task Force dashboard, you'll know that they have some summary sentiment data around your location, and that's our data. We're pumping that in here, so you can see digital sentiment, you can see digital participation between national and local organisations, and there's a problem there which we're talking about much more today, and you can compare your digital activity to footfall. We're going to talk a lot more about that today, and you can look at your engagement. Critically, you've also got access to a free Maybe account. So if you haven't yet got one, please do get in touch after this webinar, and Sarah will ensure you're plugged in, because we are all the sum of the conversations within our place. Now, what we're going to talk about today is we're sharing best practice examples of local business support that positively impact pride in place. I'm a pretty passionate advocate that actually, in a world where we're all walking around with one of these guys in our hand the whole time, the blur between digital and physical is getting more blurry in my background all the time. So we're going to look at best practice around business engagement. We're going to look at ways to deliver the outputs that ensure measurable economic outcomes. And we're going to look at how to use and manage data to facilitate the entire process. Because I think there's a big problem. We call it the digital gap. And we'll talk more about that today. To sort of give some context about why we can talk about this with some sort of conviction, and really why we'd like to help you, if you're delivering local business support, think about the most effective way of doing it, because it really matters. We've worked with about 100 local authorities on a range of different funded projects, whether they're UK CRF, Welcome Back, EDRF, and now a number of UK SPF projects. And we have tested pretty much every which way to deliver local business support. So we can tell you what hasn't worked and what has worked, and things that we think is going to work much better in the future. So to give some context, to date, we've delivered about 250,000 phone calls to local businesses. We've provided about 20 million in match funding. We've sent over 2 million emails to local businesses. We've awarded just under £750,000 in vouchers. And we've trained, critically, 25,000 businesses. And we're learning what helps them learn faster, what they don't engage with. And critically, we've worked out how we can engage and train a business for an average of £200 per year. This is about learning from what works. And I think before we do that, just understanding that training now needs to, in my mind, be a very data-led process, and it's got to happen in a very digital environment. So what we have generated over the last 2 years is a system that enables you to understand and define the area that you want to support your businesses in. So you need to be able to say, in this example, we've got a boundary drawn on the map. So this is inside this area, all of these businesses are being supported. And then to be able to see what's being done to them. And so you can then measure against your outcomes and outputs. So if you want to get to 1,000 businesses, you need to be able to see where that's happened. And you need to be able to see what we're doing to do that. So we demonstrate, for example, the number of businesses we've identified, the number of businesses receiving support, and the amount of emails that those businesses have seen. As we're going through a lot of the evaluations for UK CRF projects, we're now working out how to make that even richer. And I'll talk more about that later, because there's been a lot of learning for us around how to measure outcomes in the most intelligent way possible. But importantly, once you've worked out who you need to support, is then the question of how do you do it? And that's really what I want to talk about today. One thing that we invested in massively last year was a whole video training portal. That means that the way we deliver training is delivered forever. We believe, and I want to talk about this a lot more, and the do's and don'ts, that particularly now the world has returned to, in inverted commas, normal, whatever that crazy thing is, businesses are busier than ever. And that means actually that getting them to come to training is really, really hard. So we believe that in order to get businesses to learn, and oh boy, do they need to learn for reasons I'll show you in a moment. That the training has to be bite-sized. So we do everything we do is in 10-minute chunks, and it's very specific. And everything we do is linked to tools, because you've got to have a way to see what's the problem I need to fix, and then how can I fix it as fast as possible. And then the really important part is, how do you measure it? One thing that we've been experimenting with, I think we've really nailed this, is that we have literally taken the longitude and latitude of every local business we've supported, and we've done this in 2 areas now, in Herefordshire and Essex. It's about 5,000 businesses, and we have measured the footfall through the front door of those businesses through the longitude and latitude, and literally we've had a team making sure it is their front door, it's not their backyard, so we can understand, have more people walk through that door. I think it's very interesting when you talk about local business support, digital, because there's a big thought that well, digital means online, and I can promise you that digital does not just mean online. What we can see is that if you can train businesses to get better at social media, footfall increases. This is a snapshot from Ledbury, where the orange line is the businesses that have been trained in social media's footfall versus the town trend versus non-participating businesses. Now, I think this paints a very important story for economic growth. And Sarah, I know that you're pretty passionate about this, but fundamentally, the phone is now the signpost, and if you don't put your headlights on and invite people in, they don't come. And this is not a graph that we were surprised by when Maybe started. I think it's about 8 years ago now. We did a project in Stafford, and the same thing happened there. And this keeps happening up and down the country. But this is the first time we found a way to measure this at scale against the balance of the town, and we're really excited by it. Sarah, I know that you were pretty excited when you saw this too.
I'm still jumping up and down. Like you said, though, it is what we expected. And it's sort of one of my frustrations around the shared prosperity prospectus, and that actually increase in footfall is that it doesn't actually feature that much in the desired outputs, or desired outcomes rather. But obviously, when you increase footfall, what do you get? You get economic prosperity, you get jobs created, you get jobs safeguarded, and all of those other lovely outputs, outcomes come on the back of that. So this is really, really powerful data.
Thanks, Sarah. And I think that, again, one of the things I think for us, the biggest questions is, how do you measure those outcomes and outputs in the most efficient way possible? And even if footfall is not defined as an outcome, we're going to continue to measure it, because I think it goes to so many other indicators, specifically pride in place, because if people turn up, you'll have a better place. So just sort of moving on from there, I think it's worth taking a pause and thinking, why is social media so key to local business support, and the impact it has on place sentiment? Because increasingly social media is the place where people go to discuss their challenges, and understanding this sentiment is key to that sort of fundamental term, pride in place. We know that from the data from 3.9 million businesses across the UK, that only 19% of businesses are active on social media on a daily basis, and we know that only 9% of businesses across the UK post at the weekend. Actually, only 25% of businesses are spending more than 5 hours a week managing their social media, which is significantly less than the average individual. And I'm going to dive into that some more, because this, for me, is one of the big injustices of businesses versus consumer life at the moment. So 45% of people are spending over 3 hours a day on social media. Just stop and think about that for a minute. So 25% of businesses are spending 5 hours a week, but 45% of people are spending over 3 hours a day. It's something like 78% of people are spending over 7 hours a week on social media. So massive difference in the way that businesses invest in using this channel versus how consumers use it. When you look back at Christmas, and this will only be bigger again next year, 85% are using, a percent of people are using social media to decide what to buy last Christmas. And whiz through these data slides, but I think you'll get the picture. Which channels? Facebook, don't anybody tell you Facebook is not the channel where people spending time. It still very much is. And which is your favorite social media channel? Facebook still wins against everything else. How do you stay in touch with shops, businesses that you use? Email and social media and websites. Social media is bigger than everything else. 55% of consumers use social media to stay in touch. How often do you click, like, or engage in content you see on a brand or social media? Sometimes and often. So close to 80% regularly engage with brands on social media. So if you're not active on social media as a brand, think about the impact that has on your place. How often do you shop online? No surprise here. 1 to 3 times a month, once a week, more than once a week. You know, online is a big piece of that. How often do you shop locally or in store? Over 95% of consumers shop locally on a regular basis, and that is where social media and local collide. How do you use social media for anything following? Tick or apply. Obviously, this has a slight retail bent about it, but it applies to all local businesses. So you see the strength of how people are using social media to follow businesses that you shop from, follow brands you like, purchase your interest from. So again, think about that impact on economic growth if businesses just aren't present in these channels, or only 19% are posting once a month. Huge gap. Do you share your good and bad brand experience on social media with friends? 75% of people do that. So if you're sharing experience and the business doesn't respond, again, think of the impact that has on that business. How often do you see social media to find out the latest products and services? 85% of people use social media to discover products. So when you look at this data and then you think about that football graph again, no surprise really, is it? In the last 3 months, have you purchased something as a result of having seen it on social media? Close to 80% saying yes. 75%, sorry, over-exaggeration. 60% have bought something they've seen on social media that they can't find elsewhere. It's where we get to look for stuff. 70% believe that social media is a way to support smaller, independent brands. But if that smaller, independent brand is not there, people won't arrive because they're looking for them on social media. 60% believe social media is the obvious way to look for things to purchase. Businesses just aren't there. And which of the following influences your purchase the most? Friends and family, sharing it with them on social media, celebrity influence, and brands posting about it directly. But you've got to be discoverable. When you purchase via social media, has it been from any of the following? Now, this is the key one. Look at this, small, independent. It's critical. Close to just 65% of people have purchased via social media, and they do it more for independent businesses. But again, the majority are not there. So there's disproportionate benefit if businesses are on social media. How likely are you to buy from social media adverts served in your timelines? Very likely, quite likely. Now, from all the businesses we have trained, of the 25,000 businesses we're working with, it's about when they first join us, it's less than 5% that have ever used social media advertising. Never mind posted. Again, this is where the gap is. Most businesses don't even know where to start with using paid advertising. So just to reinforce, you can see how consumers' lives have shifted, but businesses are really, really struggling to keep up. And this doesn't particular to any one area. This happens all the way across the UK. This is taking the best performing local business, local authority areas across the UK. And by best performing, we mean the ones that have the most businesses active on social media. Okay, just absorb that for a moment. This is the best performing local authority areas across the UK. And you can see we've got 13%, 18%, 18%, 18%, 26%, 20%, 19% of businesses are posting on a monthly basis compared to 78% of consumers spending close to 8 hours a week on social media. Huge, huge gap. Now, when you get a business doing well on social media, the change is just transformational. This is a small business in Star in the World. She now has three shops. She's shipping online as well. when she runs a reel of or creates a social post or a story about a new product line, people turn up at her store in Star World, and people go to her. They have lunch in Star World. It's a footfall driver for the whole town. That goes back to that footfall data I showed at the beginning. People buy from people, and social media gives a way for a place to have positive sentiment about it through the content that each of its brands are creators. They are all people that can publish content, but if they're not doing it, it's really hard. These visualizations are a new piece of tech that we're working on at the moment, which lets you start to understand where products are getting shipped to and understand where people are coming from to visit your places. And we're working also at how we can start to identify other areas, other socio-demographic inputs that help you identify audiences that you need to reach to encourage the prosperity of their place. It all comes from social data. The way that training is delivered, it needs to be trustworthy. And one of the things that we learned actually through some of the engagement we've been doing is we had to do a lot of our engagement to get to 25,000 businesses through the phone. And the massive learning for us is that when you ring businesses saying there's local business support available and it's being sponsored or funded by the local council, if you can't point back to the council website and say, look, there it is, actually people think you're spamming them. And Sarah, it was we had a really tough time for a few months, didn't we, of trying to explain to businesses that this was a genuine offer. And we now know we've learned how to fix that problem. But one of the big learnings for me is make sure that whichever provider you're working with your local business support, that you've got your ducks in a row so that you publish on your site that you are providing local business support. I'm sorry, you can speak to that much more.
Yes. Yes, but there was a lot of learning around it. Some councils, whose switchboard didn't necessarily know that there was the local business support on offer. So there were people phoning up to check whether it was credible and so on and so forth. So actually we've learned that making sure that the support available is visible in the press once you release, when you start the project and you follow the project, and that you've got the relevant signposting obviously within your own websites, but even more crucially as well, making sure that other business support providers and stakeholders understand what each other are delivering, because actually there's a whole load of mutual signposting that can go on, and that works really well as far as making sure that businesses understand the whole offer that's available to them and can find out about what we've been delivering.
Thank you, Sarah. I think, again, the other point I'd like to make is that make sure that once you're delivering local business support, that you talk about those case studies and you talk about what's working, because one of the things that we've found is that there's often a fear of stepping over the edge and starting. And if businesses can get, oh, actually, Sally down the road's having a good time, I maybe will give this a go as well. It has a massive impact. This is very human because it's one of those crazy things. It's actually remarkably easy to get started, but the psychological block to starting can be quite massive.
Certain case studies, localizing and personalizing local business support as we do, it really makes a difference to uptake, having that local story, those local case studies around their place and their sector, whether it be fashion or retail or hospitality or tourism or whatever. We've got support for everybody. That personalization, especially when you're working with providers that are delivering support at scale, sometimes you wonder whether you're going to get that localization, and it really does work.
And we're going to go next to the session. We want a whole load of questions and answers, great questions on this bit, but we really want to reinforce the fact that digital activity contributes to pride in place and economic growth, and really explore, what is it that, how can we share with you the best practices that we've done, because we have we have tested pretty much every which way to do this. So what we'd like to do now is go through the do's and don'ts that we've learned, and we'd love to. The idea here is that we can, share what we've learned and help you to avoid some of the hard things that we've walked into on this journey. So just working through the things that work. For a start, the outreach is absolutely critical. You cannot expect businesses to come to you. You've got to have a program that means that you can outreach at scale. What we have done is we've identified 3.9 million businesses in the UK, so we literally can throw a boundary around a place and start to call it and run paid social media to it. You've got to blanket coverage the invite, because in our experience, expecting businesses to come to you and feet on the street just don't work. You cannot get to businesses at scale. And I think people are busy, so you've got to be prepared to make sure that through the combination of paid social media, phone outreach, and email, you've got multiple touch points, even to get businesses to start to want to come to training. The stakeholder support to validate training is also critical, so that if you've got people on the phones or send emails, you can point back to the local press coverage or point back to the training, even if it's just a little nib of content on the council website to say this training is happening. Be absolutely obsessive and make sure your provider is obsessive about email follow-up. It takes multiple touch points to get businesses to do anything, and you've just got to be relentless in going after them. We've learned that on-demand video, and I'm going to show you how that actually works in a minute, is critical. So if I want to learn whether I want to do a reel, or learn how to start Facebook, or learn how to create a custom audience on Facebook, whatever it is, I've got to be able to do that in the shortest amount of time possible, have all the information I need at my fingertips, and have access to the tools. We totally, having tested this every which way, recommend training, keep it virtual, don't take it to the classroom, and make sure you keep the content updated and make it case study led. I've got to be able to go, oh, I can relate to that. So we make sure that all the training we create is divided by sector and by topic. So we've got the same topic covered for accountants, restaurants, solicitors. And so you've got context, because unless it's got context, businesses just don't want to learn. You've got to provide the tools that make it easier to solve the problem and help businesses make more money. If you want businesses to get better, they've got to have incentive to do that. So they've got to understand there's value to the training. So it's, we believe that putting a monetary value against the training is really, really important. And that you can explain what the value of it is. I think there's a question here for something about basic minimum training.
Yeah, Tess, sorry if I've missed this, she said, but is there any basic social media training available via your platform for businesses to access? It's extraordinary how many people ask that question. Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
So we'll show you. We'll actually go and do a get started video in a moment. So what's really interesting, Tess, is that we know that the lady that looked all amazing on the earlier slide, with her amazing orders being shipped all around the UK, just 18 months ago, she hadn't even started. And businesses go from nowhere to somewhere very fast, very quickly. And what we found quite early on in our journey was that if you only did the sort of real getting started bit, then the minute they got to the next level, it's like, oh, no, what do I do? I'm lost. So because of the number of businesses who've trained, we've gone from, we have the getting started content through to the more advanced content. So you might have a really bright individual join a business and can take them there really quickly. And so it's important that whichever provider you use has got the depth to be able to take businesses on that journey, because it starts happening quite quickly once they start getting good at it. So absolutely, to answer your question, 100%, we've got from literally step-by-step videos of how do I get started. We've got daily training sessions of businesses being able to come and have somebody hold their hands and go through it, through to much more advanced stuff, because you've got to provide that relevance, and all of that is done at a sector-led level as well, where we possibly can test, because that's what makes me go, oh well, because it's different. Every type of business has got a slightly different nuance, and we also make sure we've got expert help available on demand via chat and phone. So for me, the don'ts are don't think that delivering local business support through a single point webinar static and just once will work, because we don't believe it's value for money. You know, we believe that you can train businesses at scale with an always-on approach for about £200 a year, and you can start to move the dial on some really big outcomes and outputs, as we've shown through our footfall data. But you've got to take a very modern approach to this. You've got to even the whole business of coming to group training, until you feel safe and you've learnt enough. A lot of businesses don't want to turn up and go, actually, I don't know how to do this. They want to learn that in private. And that's why we believe the sort of whole video on demand, do 10-minute chunks at a time. And some of the programs we've run, people have earned access to vouchers based upon the number of training sessions they come to. And that works incredibly well, because you're then incentivizing people to learn in their own time, in their own space. You've got that always on approach that they can watch videos, they can ask through chat live, and they get an answer 24/7. Say, oh, actually, you should go and watch this next one, whatever it is. Give the training of value, because sometimes you say to people it's free, they just think it's valueless. So make sure they understand the value of what they're getting, and really double down on that scalable measurement and reporting, because it's really frustrating to think, you know, your provider's delivered a great program, but then not be able to measure and prove it. So I'd love any more questions around this, because it is a can of worms, and I think we've bumped ahead on many bits of it. But the things that I'd just like to sort of really reinforce that in my eyes just don't work, which is number one, expecting businesses to come to you. Feet on the street outreach, believe me, we've done an awful lot of it, and I think you just tend to alienate businesses. They don't want to be interrupted in their place of work, and they don't want to go to classroom. What they want is to be able to watch videos on their phone when they've got a quiet 10 minutes. They want to be able to involve the members of staff in the space that works for them. You've got to personalise the content and the training. You've got to make it sector-led. You've got to also provide the tools that help businesses then deliver what you're talking about. And I think the whole business of, we've learned massively about providing on-demand and one-to-one support. You've got to have that blend of anonymity that people can learn, and then the ability to be able to lean in and go, yeah, right, we can really help you now. And finding providers that can do that is really key to get value. Collecting feedback, not just on surveys, I think is key. So collecting feedback as you go through the process. Not having stakeholder involvement, I think, will damage the impact of your programs, and not knowing your local data. So one thing I'd like to say right here and now is we know exactly what the level of local social media uptake is across every territory, every local authority area in the UK. And Sarah, how quickly could you get that to anybody that asked?
Oh, well, it doesn't take me it takes me seconds to find it. Depends how big the queue is, though, of course. Last month, I think, had 35 requests for their local data. So as fast as I was typing. But
they have it by the next day, Sarah?
Oh, absolutely. If I'm really on fire, I can have it by 6 o'clock. But you know, be the first in the queue is what I would say.
So if anybody would like to know how their local businesses are performing on social media right now, I challenge you to ask Sarah Bassett for that data, either in chat right now, or you can drop her an email via sarah@maybitech.com, and she'll also make sure that you've got access to the Maybe for your local authority area too. Oh, I've got a tickle in my throat. You're a remarkably quiet audience. Has anybody got any other questions on this? Oh, I see one here. It's a question around on-demand video. Should that be on YouTube? Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to show you actually how we do our videos. We put them on a private hub, which means that we can track who's watching them. So we ask people to put an email address in, that's how we know how much training people have watched, and that enables us to provide an incentive to get people to watch training. So based upon the amount of training people watch, they then get access to other vouchers. Another question about phone calls. Is that cold calling? Yes, absolutely. So what we do is we found that the two ways of doing this, we do call businesses at scale. So we use a call center, who have a dialer, and then people saying, hey, we'd like to send you the information about local business support in whichever area. And then their email address goes into CRM, and they're then entered into a training cycle of emails. So quite a complex CRM process that backs it up. And equally, the same process can be triggered through social media outreach through paid social media. But no one of those things works alone. I think, Sarah, that's the thing that really got us scratching our head, wasn't it? Which is, it's the combination, it's the multi-channel approach that really works. Phones, social media, email, and keep rinsing and repeating. We have tested mail, but I'm yet to be really convinced, Sarah, that mail works. The cost of it works. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, I don't think it works. And I also, where we've tried it, one of the pushbacks is the ESG, the sort of
Environmental things.
Exactly. People don't want printed things being sent to them. I think it's waste of paper, and and do you know, I kind of got a point with that. And so this whole social media conversation, that's certainly the sort of environmental, social governance agenda, ethical, local value piece is just ever growing, isn't it? Really interesting. But postal delivery just didn't really work.
No. So our recommendation, if you're doing local business support, whether it's for social media or anything else, I would recommend phone, paid social media, and backed up by an awesome email conversation. And make the email quite conversational. It's worth investing and thinking that don't write the email from, or ensure your provider is not writing it from one to many. Try and write it one-to-one and make it look highly personal. And write to the pain that your businesses are in right now, which is that life is tough. It's really tough out there. And what they need to do is learn how to connect with their customers. So we often find that we don't talk about social media, we talk about connecting with customers, because they know they need to do that. They don't know that if they're not using social media right now, they've got their walls up and they don't want to do it. So you've got to help them understand you're going to help to connect them to customers. And once you tip that, my word, it works incredibly well. And they are so grateful, which is lovely. Any other questions in here? I think so. I can see some you've got a raft of people asking.
I've now got a list. Yes, I've got emails pinging in, and yes.
Okay, we're definitely being heard. That's good. Thank you.
So, Mark, yes, of course, I can share the information on Nottingham for you. No problem.
Right. So what's next? What's next up? So this is just, again, from a sort of what do you call this? What's this called, Sarah? It's a logic map, isn't it? It's a logic map.
A logic model.
A logic model. This is a logic model. So please feel free to screenshot this and take away. This is what we would recommend a successful outreach program for local business support looks like. And it starts with you get the local data for, let's say Nottingham, because you just mentioned Nottingham. So please don't think I'm picking on Nottingham. But you get the local data for Nottingham. We identify that we do that through a process with Google Maps. But let's say there are 10,000 businesses in for SME businesses, and we define SME businesses by those that have only got a single location on Google Maps. That means that we've got their phone data, and we start calling them, and we start sending emails, and we invite them to social media training, which I'm going to show you on the next screen. That then means that you can retarget them via email and retarget them by social media. So social media is interesting. We use it to reach cold audiences, so send it out to all page admins in a certain area. But then it's really good for retargeting. I don't know who of you's experienced of, you've seen something on the web and then suddenly they keep on reappearing. Well, it absolutely works. So once we've got somebody to say yes, we make sure that they keep seeing training and they keep getting emails about the training. And they then can access open social media training that has no barriers in the way. They literally can dive in and start to see all the case studies on business in Nottingham, and they start to get, this is really interesting. I like this. And then you offer them more tools. I'll show you those in a minute. And as you come down the funnel gets smaller. And as more people start engaging, you then say, well, chop, if you don't watch the training, you don't get the vouchers. And we then have a much smaller number of businesses that are possibly awarded vouchers in a place, depending on budgets available. But that gives you a really big carrot to get people to accelerate their use of the training. Because I think another problem I've seen is that, you know, lots of effort is put into creating training, but then it's really hard to get the momentum of businesses coming through. So we sort of we create this slight urgency over you're going to miss out. Have comprehensive reporting so you can see who's getting what, and we learn the whole time. We literally review our email cadences. There was one that went out, our best email of last week, I'll share this with you, was we needed to get a whole bunch of businesses in Herefordshire to do something specific. So, oh, how are we going to get this to work? Man, I'm going to make this work. So we offered them a dinner at the Beefy Boys. And if whoever doesn't know the Beefy Boys, but it's the most amazing burger joint you've ever seen in your life. And we had a 75% open rate across an email that was going to 2,000 people, just because you offered the burger and Beefy Boys. So be human, be fun, because that's what drives engagement. And don't be prepared to, make sure you challenge whoever's delivering your programs to, you need to look at their data and go, how's it doing? And are you optimizing based upon program performance? Are you delivering what our businesses need? And have you got this blend of always on and human? Because that's what you've got to remember. In order to help these businesses get better, you've got to persuade them that they're doing something they currently are not. And that means they've got to give up their time, and their time is their most valuable thing at the moment. So you've got to be pretty persuasive to ironically give them something they haven't got to pay for in order to get them to do something they don't really want to do at the moment, but will deliver them tremendous value. And to that point, I'm just going to show you again that this process means that if you measure footfall, you can see that increase now across all of Herefordshire. I think it's 15% increase in footfall. I'm going to show you exactly what's done it. So this is the on-demand training portal. So I think it was Tracy asked earlier on, you know, how can I get started? Literally, all of these videos are how do I set up a Twitter account? And I'm not going to play it, but you literally have got a 5-minute video here about how to set up a Twitter account. If you want to go back and say, well, actually, I want to do something much more difficult, you've got social media advertising down here. So you need something that gives this level of support in order to deliver stuff, health at scale, is what I believe. So, and these videos are not on YouTube. It's a private environment. It's much safer. There's a chat facility where people can ask for help. And this is what's enabled us to crack 25,000 businesses being trained. When they play the video, after a minute, they have to put their email address in if they want to get access to vouchers. And it's all of those little pieces that make such a big difference. We've also got, make sure we've got, so if we did, let's do an area. Where would you back to the programs in Buckinghamshire? So here we go. So you got content by both topic and area. So Buckinghamshire, let's go to Herefordshire. We've got those there. So when you start your programs, you want to make sure that you can show businesses content that's relevant to them. So these are, for example, all case studies from businesses in a specific area. So this content you would be targeted at hairdressers. They go, oh, that's Sally down the road. Well, she can do this, I can do this. And that, I would recommend that approach of using local case studies is without doubt what works incredibly well. In a perfect world, give them access to tools as well. So every business that we've trained had access to a whole range of social media tools where they've got access to schedulers and all of the tools they could possibly need. So whenever they've learnt what they need to do, they can then immediately go and act upon it. And measure it. You know, as I talked about, we've found a way to measure footfall and track that back to a map against change. But equally, we're very aware we're just finishing off a big survey for UKCRF, and we're now looking at how with SPF we can collect data more incrementally as we go along the process. So around jobs and jobs created and jobs safeguarded, because it's tough. But I think there are ways to do that. And if anybody would like to ask more specifically about that, please do get in touch. I'd be very happy to share how we would recommend doing that. I'm pretty passionate that I think there is just a skills gap of enormous proportion out there, and we're very keen to help encourage local business support to fix it. If anybody wants to pick our brains about best ways to do that, or to talk to Sarah about how we can help, please do get in touch. Every place is some of its digital parts.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, Sarah, sorry, I've ravished on.
No, I've just been, while you've been sharing all that information, I've just tootled off into the Maybe platform, and I pulled the data for Nottingham, Mark. So I thought I'd share the data with you. So out of the just over 13,000 businesses we've been able to identify on Google Maps, 7,300 of them are local SME businesses. 1,600, 23% actually have a social media account. But critically, only 169 businesses out of those 7,300 are posting on a monthly basis.
Scary, isn't it?
It's a national picture, though. In fact, 23%, Nottingham's doing quite well in comparison to many others.
Could do better. Would love to help you put together a programme and explain what we've learned, because it's a big problem. Sarah, thank you for being so efficient. And please, please, everybody else that's asked will be getting their data immediately. If you get any questions, please email sarah@maybetech.com. If you want to know how to help your local businesses, pick our brains, ask us any questions. You've all got access to a Maybe account. Don't be strangers, there's a little blue chat button down the bottom right hand corner of our platform that connects you to our lovely team 24/7. Yeah, if you need any help with delivering your local business support programs, please get in touch to ask us how we can do it, or just pick your brains about how you like to do it yourself locally. We are here to serve. Thank you all very much. Sarah, what have I missed?
I don't think you've missed anything. Well, it's, but I got to tell you that. So, no, I'm afraid I gave you a list of how dreadful it was. No, it was, it was just, we're very passionate about this, aren't we? And it is such a huge problem, and it really does need addressing, and we really are here to help.
Yeah, and I think what I love about it so much, Sarah, is actually with a relatively small investment, you can make such a disproportionate impact on local businesses and your place as a whole. The data might sound scary, but actually, just imagine what would an increase in 15% of footfall mean for your places. And I think that is deliverable at scale, and I'm really keen to see that happen. So we've done it before, we can do it many times again, or provide you the blueprint for you to go and follow to do it yourselves. Either way, it really matters that businesses have the wherewithal to connect with local people or invite more people in. That's what Place Sentiment is all about, because we're all on our phones. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. I hope your daffodils grow well and your tulips bloom. I'm jealous of your tulips are out because mine haven't even come up yet. Thank you so much. Positive attitude. Yes, it's all about being positive, right? And more people asking for data. Yes, it will all be sent across. Thank you so much for coming.